Okay, it's 10 a.m., so we'll call this meeting to order. It's the Douglas County Public Library Board special meeting. This time we'll take public comments. All written public comments that are received prior to 4 p.m. the day before the library board meeting will be compiled and will be added as supplemental material for the library trustees and the public to review prior to the meeting. To make public comment during the meeting, the public must call 775-783-6024 and leave a voice message which will be played for the library board of trustees and the public. There was some confusion that people thought this line was open last night, which does not go towards this meeting. So if you made a comment that you would like heard at this meeting, you'll need to call that number now. Any written public comment received after 4 p.m. the day before the library board meeting will be compiled and added as supplemental materials to the county's website and distributed to the library board of trustees within 24 hours after the meeting. So public comment is open now.
This is Veronica Hallam. We received 5 emails, public comment. I will submit them as supplemental material after this meeting. We have also received 1 voicemail public comment, and I will play that now.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Salvador. That is JESSICA SALVADOR. And I am calling in support of Amy Dodson, the Douglas County Public Library Director, DCPL Director. First, support for Black Lives Matter and for public safety are not mutually exclusive. The DCPL has a constitutional right to express a position denouncing violence and racism, and such a statement should, in fact, enhance the public's trust in the library, in Amy Dodson, and other library leadership that supports that statement. So I am calling in support of Amy Dodson.
Okay, I have not received any more public comment voicemails at this time.
Thank you, Veronica.
Kate, are we waiting for something, or did?
I thought we had to wait 5 minutes for public comment.
Oh, I apologize. I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, it's now 10:05. Veronica, was there any more public comment? You're muted.
I apologize. There was no further public comment.
Okay, at this time, public comment will be closed and we'll move on to agenda item number 2 for possible action. Discussion on the approval of the proposed agenda. The Library Board of Trustees reserves the right to take items out of order, to combine 2 or more agenda items for consideration, and to remove items from the agenda at any time. All items designated for possible action shall include discussion by the Board of Trustees. They may take action to approve, modify, deny, take no action, or continue the item. Bonnie, you're muted.
Okay, I think, is that working?
Yes, it is now.
I think it's a question for Carrie. This is a special meeting to discuss the presentation. Is it appropriate to have an action item on an item that's not a part of the special meeting?
I'm not exactly sure if I'm understanding the question correctly. So the items that we have today on the agenda are first the presentation about the investigation, and then the other item is for the trustees collectively to decide what kind of action item you might like to have on the next meeting agenda that might come out of.
Okay. My question is, since this meeting was called for a special reason, is it appropriate, or I don't even know, maybe legal to have another item not related to this special meeting agenda?
Well, are you seeing that we have something on the agenda that's not related to the?
Well, for the board to decide what items it wanted to have put on the agendas.
Yeah, I think that is fine in terms of being within the scope of what we're doing here today. If a special meeting is called also, I mean, there's nothing that would restrict the board from considering any number of items that are unrelated to that particular topic, as long as they're properly on the agenda. So it's on the agenda. The public was noticed of it.
It was just a general interest question, really. So.
Okay. Sorry, I had a hard time answering it. I think we got it now.
So does someone want to move to approve the agenda?
I move approval.
Move to approve the agenda.
I second. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 3 for presentation only. Presentation and report by Ogletree, Denkins, Nash, Smoke, and Stewart, PC, an independent firm that was retained by the Douglas County Human Resources Department at the Library Board of Trustees' direction to investigate recent events and communications that resulted in complaints to the library and the Douglas County. The presentation may include information regarding the investigator's process and findings, as well as recommendations to the Library Board of Trustees. The board will not take action on this item. And Molly, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm going to share my screen because I do have a PowerPoint. So we practiced this, so hopefully it works. All right, does everybody see my PowerPoint at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, as stated on the agenda item, we are here today to have a presentation regarding the Douglas County Public Library investigation. I am Molly Rizak, and I am an employment lawyer with the law firm of Ogletree Deakins. And in that capacity, I assist employers with all aspects of employment law, as well as conduct these types of investigations and coordinate these types of investigations, depending upon my role for any given investigation that is occurring. So with that, I will advance the screen, I hope. Let me just see if that works. There we go. So as stated in the agenda item, I wanted to talk a little bit about what not only the investigation scope, but also what the investigation process was prior to going into the findings of the investigation. I was contacted, well, actually on August 25th, the board voted to initiate an investigation into the facts surrounding the posting of a diversity statement on behalf of the library. This was the diversity statement that was posted 2 separate times. It was posted on social media on June 24th, 2020, and it was also posted on agenda for the Douglas County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting in July of 2020. And so there were separate incidents related to those, and those were separate questions as to what occurred, basically, the facts and findings of what occurred, whether or not there was authority to do so within the various policies, statutes, and regulations.
Call from wireless caller.
So with respect to any investigation, investigators go through a process to provide and get the information for an employer seeking an investigation. The goal of an investigator is to be neutral, and as they are interviewing each of the witnesses or looking at the documents presented, is to look at that from a neutral standpoint, to make really just as a fact finder, making a determination about what happened. Therefore, through that process, I initiate the process through a document review. This was an investigation that was very document intensive. There were not only the postings related to the social media posts, there were emails back and forth related to that. There was myriads of public comment related to that, as well as articles, media, etc., that all occurred, and those were reviewed. But more importantly than even all of that was the fact that this is a public entity. It's a statutory government agency and statutorily created. And so there are statutes that govern both the Board of Trustees as well as the library director position. There are also, the Nevada State Library provides training to trustees, so information that they are provided on how to, what their role is as a trustee, as well as what is that vis-a-vis the library director. There are Douglas County policies and codes that come into play in this as well. So this was a very fact-intensive investigation. There were also obviously interviews with witnesses. We interviewed all board members, all the current board members, the Director Dotson, as well as 8 other employees to determine what happened in this case. As we talked about, statutes, policies, other relevant materials were reviewed. In this instance, one of the board members really wanted to know with respect to what did other libraries do? What was happening within the industry there to determine whether or not, what was the thinking at the time that these instances happened, when the social media post occurred, when the posting on the agenda happened? Where were we at with that? In addition, there was some general research related to that with respect to what those other libraries were doing. Look at other public libraries within the state that are governed by the same statutes that the Douglas County Public Library are governed, so that we could see what that library did and what they thought. Then we took all of that information, all of the witness interviews, and made certain findings, as well as created a report. That report will be sent to Wendy Lang at Human Resources to be dispersed to the board later today. So some background information about the issue that was to be investigated. As we know, in May of 2020, George Floyd was killed and there was a lot of social unrest throughout the United States. As a result of that, the American Library Association, the Urban Library Councils, and the Public Library Association was calling on all libraries to publish diversity statements and put forward their perspective relative to racial inequality. And they specifically did call out libraries to support Black Lives Matter and other issues related to that. With respect to those types of issues and determining whether or not the statement that was posted was a policy or something else, the law on library policy does require equal service to all. There is Nevada revised statute that requires public accommodations to provide equal access to all individuals, regardless of, and you can insert any protected category, including race, into that, and that is what Douglas County Library does. In addition, the library has the Library Bill of Rights, which some of the board members had mentioned. We already had something in place that stated that we provided equal service to all. From the time the ALA, the Urban Library Councils, and the Public Library Association began calling on libraries to publish those diversity statements, Director Dotson started researching and making a determination as to what the Douglas County Public Library should do. At that time, she reviewed various different library diversity statements, both local as well as national, that she was aware of. And she took language from various different places and drafted her own statement. From that point, after she drafted the statement, she did ask some library supervisors to review and revise it. And they came up with, and Director Dotson made the decision related to the final diversity statement that was ultimately posted. At that point, she directed the posting of the diversity statement on social media. Shortly thereafter, this was around 10 o'clock in the morning on June 24th. Shortly thereafter, she was contacted by legal counsel for the county and was asked to remove the statement and told that if the library wanted to have a diversity statement posted, that the board should review that statement. At the time, there was question as to whether or not such a diversity statement would be considered political in nature. It's important to note that the Douglas County policies do prohibit, as well as the Hatch Act, prohibit public employees from making statements or supporting political activism or political groups. However, subsequent to, so this was posted on June 24th. On July 14th, because this was a question that was an open question throughout the United States as the world was going through the social unrest, on July 14th, the U.S. Special Counsel issued its memorandum related to the Hatch Act, finding that Black Lives Matter terminology, as well as the Black Lives Matter group, was not political and not prohibited by the Hatch Act. However, going back to June 24th, Director Dotson did heed the advice of legal counsel. She removed the post at that time, although she did do so with the statement that she did not think that she needed to do so. In the email that she sent to board members, she specifically stated that she has authority to do this, that she knew that she did not think that she needed to remove that. It should also be noted that in this timeline, prior to June 24th, when Douglas County Library had posted its diversity statement, the Washoe County Library System on June 17th held its public meeting. At that public meeting, their director advised the board of the Washoe County Library System that he too had posted a very similar diversity statement, which also included language such as hashtag Black Lives Matter. At that point, there was some, based upon the minutes from the Washoe County Library System, there were conversations or questions asked about what type of response that was received. And it was reported that they got a couple of positive comments, but there wasn't a lot of other reaction to that statement. What I find interesting about this, because we need to go back to what was happening at the time that the actual post occurred. What I find interesting about this is Washoe County Library Systems did the exact same thing, in that they felt that they had the authority, the director felt that he had the authority to simply post the payment or statement, excuse me, and then subsequently notify his board in a meeting related to that statement. And that is what occurred there. So the Douglas County Public Library statement on social media was only up for a few hours, and it was taken down, and there was very little public comment received regarding that social media post at all. So one of the first questions with respect to the investigation was really related to the posting of that diversity statement on social media. Did that violate policy? Historically, this board has not approved social media posts. That being said, most social media posts have always been about events at the library or other events and items related to the library itself. And so this was admittedly something that was different and had not been posted in the past. That being said, it was, generally speaking, reiterating what the policy already was of the library, as well as what the statutes require of the library to serve all people, regardless of whatever protected category they may be in. It is true at that time that professional organizations that guide libraries were calling for that action, for libraries to put forward these types of statements. Other Nevada libraries, as I stated, with the same statutory governance, were doing so as well. And it's to note that upon being advised to remove the post, Director Dotson did so, although she did so, and I would quote one of the witnesses saying she did so under protest, meaning that she really did not think that she had to do so. Basically said, I do not believe that posting of the diversity statement on social media was a violation of policy. Under the job description, as well as the Douglas County social media policy, which the library has through resolution reiterated that they follow the Douglas County policies for all staff, that the directors are in charge of social media content. The Nevada Library Council's public library trustee training specifically talks about what is considered a policy, and specifically states that laws that a library already has to follow are not considered policies. So based upon the review of those, as well as other documents, which is more fully described in the report, the posting on social media of the statement itself reiterating that the Douglas County Library welcomes all was not the posting of a new policy, so to speak, and was within the authority of Director Dotson. That being said, this investigation definitely revealed that there is some issue with respect to the board and the director, particularly related to communication. And the board is not always, some board members do not feel that they receive adequate information related to what is going on in the library. I believe that this causes a lot of distress between the board and the director, and we will talk about kind of how we move some of these things forward as we move on through this presentation. But I do want to highlight that as all of these events unfolded, it was really coming from a place where you had a board that, based upon previous things that had occurred within the library, did not feel that they were adequately informed. As well as the fact that, as one witness very succinctly put it, the library board are concerned citizens, and they are not librarians. They are not spending their time within the library industry amongst those professional organizations such as the ALA, the Urban Library Councils, the Public Library Association, to know exactly what those associations are advising libraries to do. And so additional communication throughout this process would have been very helpful so that the board didn't feel somewhat sidestepped in this situation. The next question that was presented to me was whether or not the posting of the diversity statement on the agenda was proper. As we know, this is a public agency. We are here at a public meeting. We have very required the 5 minutes of public comment that I didn't understand why we were sitting there, but that's learning for me as well. This is a public agency that is required to comply with open meeting law, and that requires that all board action be taken at a public meeting. And so in order for this board to discuss that diversity statement, it had to be posted on an agenda. And I will tell you, the chair was correct in her thoughts. She was not superimposing her ideas related to the diversity statement on any other board member. And that is based upon also the recommendation of council that they would, if they wanted to talk about it, if they felt they needed to talk about it, it needed to be on agenda. So it was properly placed on the agenda. In this case, where you received inordinate amounts of public comment and response to that posting, is open meeting law working, but also I think that there was much misunderstanding amongst the community with respect to what was to be done at that meeting. It was not to say that that the library itself was absolutely approving the diversity statement exactly as written. Instead, it was a topic up for discussion for the board to contemplate. It could have been revised. It could have been determined that there was no need for a separate diversity statement because, as we noted before, we already have the Library Bill of Rights. We already have those. Those were things that unfortunately this board never got to be able to have that discussion based upon the facts and circumstances that occurred after the posting of the diversity statement and the response from the public. I don't think anybody, the director or any board member, could have necessarily foreseen exactly what happened with respect to the sheriff writing his letter and the national media attention that this garnered as a result. With respect to the overarching issues, there were a couple other obviously key points with respect to everything that occurred here. And I want to let the board know that the report is in excess of 50 pages. And so this is a very narrow look of the overall high points of this, and that you will have the ability to read and look at that. And I will be available for any questions that any board member may have. But some of the other issues that came up was, the joint statement. There was, part of the Director Dotson's job description is that she needs to work with other county departments and make sure that the library is working well with those county departments. Throughout this, the public information officer for the county was actively involved as this became a public comment issue. And what she indicates is that Director Dotson did work with her with respect to trying to manage the public response that they received. That public information officer did feel that the sheriff and Director Dotson needed to speak. She did communicate that to Director Dotson as well as to the sheriff, and it was Director Dotson that made the reach to the sheriff to be able to move forward with that joint statement. She reached out to try to cure that misunderstanding that the diversity statement that she had drafted had made, the misunderstanding between them. She did not initially get a response, and the public information officer had to prompt a response and ultimately that joint statement. So I do feel that Director Dotson was attempting to alleviate some of that public outcry. With respect to that media as well, it has to be noted that Director Dotson, part of her job description is that she does represent the library as part in front of the media. However, throughout this instance, she had indicated to the board that the public information officer had advised her to stop those media requests. She initially did so, and then she changed her mind and continued with those types of media requests in responding to the media. She does not take orders from the public information officer. However, I think this again highlights some of the issues with respect to communication between the director and the board, in that when she had told the board that she was not going to engage with the media any longer, when she changed that decision and decided to then engage with the media moving forward, then she should have informed the board of that as well. It has to be noted that there wasn't a public meeting, and she was not directed by the board not to talk to media, but the public information officer said it would probably be a best idea. It should also be noted that the sheriff was also told not to engage with the media, but did so around the same time as the director did. So the bottom line is that I feel that while I do not find, with respect to these instances itself, that there were violations of policies related to what occurred with the diversity statement and the subsequent events, including the protest and the media outcry, et cetera. However, it is clear that the board does not feel, some of the board members do not feel that they are adequately informed with respect to all matters of the library. That, again, they are not within the library industry. Had they been more informed that there was a call to action amongst libraries to put these kinds of statements, they may have had an opportunity to have a discussion prior to the drafting of such a statement to make a determination as to whether or not, was it completely outside or a violation of policy to draft that statement and post it? I don't think so, particularly given what library associations were doing, what current policy is with respect to social media posts, what other libraries in the same statutory scheme, what their authority, the same type of authority of their director, and what their conduct was very similar. And so, you know, while hindsight is 2020 in this lovely year of 2020, it may look like we should have known better. I think if we put ourselves in the place about what was happening in that time. And one of the other things is that several witnesses did tell me, including a board member, indicated that librarians do see themselves on the forefront of those social causes, and that because they are the access and they are a gateway to information for people, and information oftentimes changes people's ideas, that it is important. And so when you put yourself in that place, and knowing that social media posts were not generally reviewed by the board, you can understand how this happened. However, I think that if the relationship between the board and the director was a little bit closer and able to, they would have more information overall, particularly outside of a COVID situation, because this year has been challenging on many more levels than even just this diversity statement, that had there been more communication and more of a feeling of trust amongst the board members, I think you would have had less of an uproar over this, or concerns. So how do we move forward with respect to this? As we know, the board is the entity that manages the library, and as part of that, they manage and evaluate the library director. And in any sort of management situation, it is extremely important that that management entity, and it's very difficult when it's a board as opposed to one supervisor and one employee. So it's new probably for everyone. And the board does need to speak in a unified voice, and that's set forth in even the Nevada trustee training. But it's also very important that the board set those expectations for the director. Let her know exactly what your expectations are. And because I do think that the majority of what occurred here was by part of a lack of communication, that needs to be key with respect to how we move forward from this situation and work towards the betterment of the library for all. So as far as board members actively participating in the setting of the agenda, prior to this issue, it is my understanding that the library director would set the agenda. Yes, board members could tell her, hey, I want this on the agenda, but she would primarily set it and have it posted. There was very little communication or coordination with the chair. That has since changed, which I think is a great thing, because under Douglas County board policies even, the chair is required to provide that input into the agenda. And so now that there is a process in place for that, I think that that is a great thing, that the chair will be more actively involved in that, in the posting of the setting of the agenda, as well as, you know, reviewing what are those packet materials that are going to be part and parcel of that. With respect to communication, I do represent some other public entities and have dealt with these types of issues in the past. And we have found that the more over communicating with your board from a director is one of the best things the director can do. As one board member put it here in this investigation, you should never surprise your board. They should be absolutely informed on everything that is occurring within the library. One of the ways that that can happen is having pre-meetings with a non-quorum of the board. Pre-meetings prior to your board meeting, and those pre-meetings can go over what is set for the agenda or other issues. And even under the open meeting law handbook that is put out by the Attorney General Ford, he indicates, in Nevada Supreme Court case law also states, that those pre-meetings, when there's no quorum, when they're informational and providing you information, and you can indicate any sort of concerns that you may have, those are not in violation of open meeting law. And so it's very important that from both sides, that the director set those meetings, those pre-meetings, if that's the determination that the board, how the board wants to have this occur, as well as those board members actively participate in those meetings. And another additional idea is that sometimes, particularly in this COVID time, there was significant amounts of time without meetings. And so, or even if you meet once a month, but situations are ongoing or new things are happening within the library, weekly written reports could be required regarding all the operations or other issues facing libraries in general, so that the board can be apprised of those issues. It's important for this board to set deadlines for projects, such as updating policies and bylaws, and then hold the deadlines and hold the director accountable for those deadlines. Yes, definitely things come up, and the business may require some extension of certain deadlines, but have the discussion about it. And those should be routine agenda items, in order to, if you have a project that you had said you want this done, you set it on a specific agenda so that it can come before the board so that you can get a status. You need to actively communicate your expectations to the director as well. And again, this can happen in pre-meetings, et cetera. Under the Nevada trustee training, it specifically talks about the fact that while the board as a full direction definitely needs to act as one with respect to setting those goals annually or providing that overall evaluation, et cetera, you can, as an individual board member, certainly have those conversations with your director as well. You do need to continue managing that employee and hold her responsible. And so with that, based upon all of the information, and again, you will get a very substantive report here this afternoon. I did not find any policy violations, but I did find that you do have a board here that there is some distrust, even from former board members, that this seems to have been a consistent issue. And that is really how I believe that this board needs to move forward. And with that, I can take any questions.
Can you take down your PowerPoint screen, Molly?
Absolutely. Let me stop sharing. There you go.
And can I make one correction to your report?
Sure, absolutely.
When you talked about the public information officer had directed Amy not to speak with the media and stuff, I did discuss that with Amy and said that I agreed with that recommendation. And I did tell you that because I believe that was on her birthday. The only reason I remember that is because we were talking about it, that she was going through this on her birthday. So, and she did send a report to us in August that said she would not be speaking to the media anymore at this time.
That's correct. And then she did and did not inform the board that she was going to. So you
Right,
are
I
correct.
just wanted to let you know, I did that.
Absolutely.
Have that conversation with her.
And you are correct. That is, you absolutely did tell me, and I do recall that from you stating that it was her birthday when you had that conversation with her.
This is Mark Jensen. Molly, thank you for that presentation. I think it laid out all the facts very well, helped me understand quite a bit about the environment in which Director Dodson was making the decisions. I also appreciate the recommendations for how to move forward. I think there's some real meat there that in the future the trustees can and the director can all that.
Were you done, Mark, or your screen's frozen?
Yeah, I think he's frozen.
Yeah.
I will say too, if there are any questions with respect to any of those recommendations as well, I'm happy to answer them here, or if any board member wants to call me.
Okay, Mark, were you done speaking? Because it froze up on you there.
Yes, I was done.
Okay.
Everything's fine.
Okay.
My question, so from here, we talk about this with the evaluation on next Tuesday, is that correct?
Well, that's what we determine in agenda item number 4, I believe, as to what we're going to put on the next agenda with it.
Okay, okay. I have just a side question. Where do we send the evaluation form?
You bring the, well,
This
we
is
work
my
on them at the meeting, and then Carrie, do they go directly to Amy or do they go to HR?
Sorry, wrong button. Carrie Rosser with the DA's office. I believe what happened at the last meeting, which would be, I think, fine for this one, is that one person would sort of be in charge of compiling everybody's X's onto one sheet, and then that one will be kept in HR, but Amy will also have a copy.
Okay.
Okay, so we just fill out our form and bring it to that next meeting, is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you put down,
Yeah.
Doug popping on, or?
And we will also collect the individual forms from everybody to include as supplemental if you have it filled out at that meeting. So, but
Now,
I mean, it's a little weird with these digital ones. Bring them to the meeting. I guess I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but we'll find some way to get them all in one place.
Okay,
Carrie, that's a change because in last year we kept the individual ones.
You kept your original.
This is Mark Jensen. That's my thought too, is that if the board is doing a final evaluation as a trustee, as a group, then the individual trustees' evaluations are moved.
This is Heather. I did not receive any evaluation form, or if it's lurking someplace, I think I'm up to date on emails and so forth. I
Didn't you mail them out, Amy?
I did in early November. Did you never receive that, Heather?
No, no.
Okay, I'll talk with you later to confirm your address and we'll send it again.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And this is kind of off topic for our agenda today, so we need to get back to this and then discuss it possibly under item number 4.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did anybody else have any discussion on Molly's report?
I think Carrie is frozen.
Where's Doug?
Did you have something you were continuing to say, Carrie, or it seemed like you were frozen for a minute?
I am sorry, I was frozen, so I may have missed something that happened.
I was just saying that we need to stick to the agenda, so we're on item number 3. We can discuss her evaluation in 4 if we need to. Okay, so does anybody else have any discussion on item number 3? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 4 for possible action, discussion and possible direction to staff regarding topics and items that the board would like to include on future agendas for the Douglas County Public Library Board of Trustee meetings.
Well, this is Bonnie. I would recommend, of course, for the December 15th meeting that it's the evaluation of Director Dodson is on the agenda.
Yes, I believe we discussed that at the last meeting.
Okay. And we still have the bylaws that should continue on the agenda until we, at least we vote on them in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that was carried over from our last meeting also.
I'm not sure how this, I think the budget has to also be a continuing issue, but Amy brought up at one time about the restriction, it's a county policy, I guess, restrictions on the amount that she can approve. So that should be on the agenda as an item that we want to address.
Do you understand what she means, Amy?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I agree with what's been said, that the evaluation, the discussion of the bylaws, and whatever budget matters are needing to be addressed should be what's on the next agenda.
Anyone else have any input on that? Okay, and you're good with what everybody said, Amy? You've got it all?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Chairwoman,
Yes.
Doug Ritchie, for the record. Just to make clear, if there's anything that the board members, the Board of Trustees would like Amy to bring to the next meeting, any information, you should probably let her know so she has a heads up. If there's any specific budget items, operation, any of those things, any information, particularly on the bylaws, if there's any red lines, because it's been a while, it's been an ongoing process. It'd be helpful if you let her know what she needs to bring to the next meeting.
Yes, and we discussed that at our meeting on November, I forget what day, the 22nd or 24th, I can't remember which day it was. And Amy does know what we wanted her to bring, correct, Amy?
Yes, and I can send that list to the entire board today if you like.
No, I was talking about our bylaws, what we went over at that
Oh.
November meeting. And we did our edits, and then you were going to bring anything that you thought we needed to change. So we
That's
have been
correct.
working on this.
Right, that's correct.
Right. And I believe the budget was the same thing we were working on.
Yes.
So thank you, Doug, but I think we had given her what we needed already. Okay, so there's nothing else on that. We can go on to item number 5, closing public comments. And it is 10:49. At this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Library Board of Trustees. Any written public comment received after 4 p.m. the day before the Library Board meeting will be compiled and added as supplemental materials to the county's website and distributed to the Library Board of Trustees within 24 hours after the meeting. To make public comment during the meeting, the public must call 775-783-6024 and leave a voice message which will be played for the Library Board of Trustees and the public. So public comment is open at 10:50. And Veronica, had you received any during the meeting? You're muted again, sorry.
I apologize. Yes, we received 3 public comment voicemails, and I will start playing them now.
Hi, my name is Jen Wilson, and I am calling in support of Director Amy Dodson. I wanted to address the Library Board of Trustees and express my disappointment in the decision to move forward with a very costly investigation into Director Dodson and the Douglas County Library for simply sharing a draft diversity statement which affirmed that Black Lives Matter, and for taking the action of signing on to the Urban Libraries Council statement on race and social equity. I want to thank her for taking this step, because it was so clearly necessary in your community, as evidenced by the level of backlash you received for simply choosing to stand on the right side of history. Racial and social equity are principles which are key to the stewardship of any library, and it shouldn't be controversial for her to state this publicly. I think it's important to reiterate that as libraries, we believe that Black life is valuable and that our Black patrons should be treated as valuable when they access our spaces. I'd also like to note that the August 25th board meeting in which this investigation was first discussed took place just 2 days after Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And per statistics documented on the website mappingpoliceviolence.org, there have only been 17 days in this entire year in which the police did not kill someone. I think that Amy Dodson expressed a very non-partisan, non-political statement when she said that Black Lives Matter, and I believe that the attempt to censor her from supporting the Black community was hugely disappointing on the part of both the community and the Library Board of Trustees, and I hope to see that a good decision is made in the conclusion of this investigation today. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, that message was received just after we adjourned the meeting at 10:05. I will play the next message. This one was received at 10:15. Okay, that message says, I guess that voicemail was not picked up. This file cannot be previewed because there's no previewer installed for it. I apologize. That one is not a good voicemail. The next one was received at 10:41.
This is Nicholas Meyer, a resident of Gardnerville. I am calling regarding the investigation into the diversity statement that was posted by the library director. My comment is as follows. The investigation leaves many questions unanswered. In the investigation, as presented by the investigator, there was no reference to the Douglas County social media policy, which was violated. The social media policy clearly states that if an employee of the county posts social media, that they must include the statement that says that this view is theirs personally and does not represent policy of the county. The library director violated that policy, and there was no reference in the investigation to the posted, published Douglas County social media policy. Second, the investigator said that the diversity statement by the library director was reviewed by library directors. Who specifically reviewed the statement? There was no mention of any person who reviewed that Third, the library director information officer specifically told the library director not to engage with the media. However, the library director unilaterally decided to ignore that advice and to talk to the media. I think that this investigation needs to answer those specific questions as they relate to the social media policy, and that specific persons need to be named who reviewed the diversity statement by the library director.
Okay. Next public comment was sent at 10:54.
Hi, my name is Charles McQuarrie. That's CharlesMacQuarrie. And I'm calling in support of Library Director Amy Dodson and the original library statement that was drafted in support of Black Lives Matter. Utterly dismaying that in this particular climate, the library board has not provided their own support for such a statement. And it seems to me that if Douglas County cannot support even such a basic statement, it's hard to consider it anything less than a sundown town. The fact that many of those who are most vocally in opposition to the library statement are themselves blatant white supremacists can only lead me to conclude that the board supports those white supremacist viewpoints. The library's previous statement was completely based in library professional practice and in the larger national conversation about militarized police violence in the United States. The board's actions against Amy Dodson constitute not only a deliberate action to interfere with that existing professional library practice, but also amount to what seems to me to basically be tacit support for white supremacists who are seeking to build a base in northern Nevada. I really urge you to support Amy Dodson much more strongly, and I'm speaking against this investigation against her. Thank you.
Okay, so far this is the last message we have received, and it was received at 10:54. I will play now.
Hi, my name is Ilya Hartman, and I'm calling in today to leave a message in support of Amy Dodson. I just want to express my unwavering support of any effort by any person to increase what I would consider progressive diversity in municipal and any type of public services. I think that when people talk about the phrase Black Lives Matter and say that that doesn't apply to the library, I would strongly disagree. That's exactly where it does apply, in places like education, in the books that people read and who have access to resources, et cetera, I think it is a blatant and bold-faced political attack to rile up people's lesser natures, to attack the director, to investigate her for no reason when she's simply doing what she thinks is, just her basic duty as a human being. I think that the library can take a very firm stand here, particularly against Sheriff Coverly and his dog whistling and racist attitude as exemplified by his treatment of peaceful protesters on August 8th in Minden. The library could easily take a stand and say, hey, we are about diversity here. We're about hearing other opinions, and a statement such as Black Lives Matter in any type of forum like the library is perfectly appropriate. All it says is that all are welcome here, and we want to make people feel welcome here, and that is how we're going to contribute to the well-being of the world, and more specifically of our community. So once again, I'm leaving my support in this message for Amy Dodson. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was the last voicemail message received.
And those voicemails, Veronica, is there any way to get them transcribed so we can read them? Because some of it was very difficult to hear.
Right, I can transcribe those for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, it's now 10:59, so public comment is closed at this time. And does anybody else have anything before we adjourn this meeting? Nope, then I guess we'll adjourn the meeting and we'll see you next Tuesday for our December special meeting. Thank you.